Luke loved staying at Grandma Evelyn's house. The room was warm and smelled like lavender. A soft lamp glowed by the bed. Grandma sat in a chair. She wore a sea-green shawl and round glasses. She told stories of rivers and foxes and old women who knew the stars. Luke leaned forward. His eyes were wide. He folded his hands. He listened hard. Grandma used a small, low voice. Luke felt safe and curious. She tucked a cloak up to his chin. She kissed his forehead. The kiss smelled like soap and bread. Grandma warned him about strange people she called witches. Her voice was caring and sharp. She told him to be clever and careful. Luke closed his eyes for a moment. He held back his questions. He trusted Grandma to answer when the time came.
They walked to the Sea Hotel. Sun hit the windows like bright coins. The hotel sat very close to the sand. Waves made a soft shush. The place smelled of lemon polish and pipes. Luke carried a small suitcase. He kept William and Mary in a tiny carrier lined with handkerchiefs. The mice peeked out with bright eyes. Luke and Grandma looked at the shining building.
Luke wanted a quiet corner to practice with his mice. He walked down the hotel halls. His feet made soft noises on the carpet. William and Mary sat in his hands. He taught them to hop on his finger. He made a small ribbon loop. The mice ran through it like little dancers. Luke's face showed focus and joy. He smiled when they did a neat trick. He checked empty rooms as he moved. Sunlight came through tall windows and hit the floor. The world felt big and kind. Luke planned to find one room where they could practice without noise. A brass plaque hung on tall doors. It read, "The Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Meeting." Luke puffed his chest and peeked through a crack. He saw velvet curtains and chairs in a semicircle. Steam and perfume swirled like soft clouds. He felt nervous and brave at once. Women came into the hall wearing big hats and gloves. At first, they looked like ordinary ladies. They carried handbags and walked with poise. Then they moved behind folding screens. Wigs came off and gloves were taken away. Shoes with pointy toes were pulled off and hidden under chairs. The air changed. It smelled like rosemary and metal under perfume. Luke hid behind a screen. He pressed close and watched. His eyes grew very wide. The room felt strange and sharp. The women finished changing. A tall, thin woman stepped forward. She did not wear a hat. She stood very straight and looked like she led the group. The room fell quiet. Even the air seemed to wait. Luke thought of Grandma. He remembered his promise to be careful. The tall woman spoke, and all heads turned. Her voice was clear and cold. She tapped the table with a gloved finger. "Order is slipping," she said. She spoke about noisy, messy children. She said the world could fall apart if no one acted. The other women nodded. They looked very sure. Luke held his breath behind the screen. The witch opened a small velvet purse. She took out a tiny bottle that shone like a black bead. She held it up like a jewel. A soft light hit the glass and flashed. The room grew very still. The witches murmured together like a small wave. Luke felt the air tighten. She told them a single drop would change a child. She smiled in a cold way. Luke's hands tightened on the screen. He wanted to leave, but curiosity stayed. "I smell a child." The sound came from the back. Luke froze. He stayed as still as he could. A shoe hit the folding screen. The screen shook. Hands found Luke and lifted him out. The tall woman looked down at him. She smiled in a way that made Luke feel tiny. She lifted a tiny bottle from her purse. She held it above him like a bell. A single drop fell onto the wrapper in Luke's pocket. It hit with a cool touch. Then the room seemed to stretch. Colors grew huge. The carpet became a wild forest of soft fibers. The floorboards looked like steep cliffs. Luke's knees seemed to disappear. His hands changed shape. His voice came out as a sharp little squeak. His heart beat like a drum in his small chest. The witches laughed like ladies who had finished a joke. Luke looked up at a huge world. Luke ran on tiny feet across the giant floor. The carpet bit at his paws. He rushed to the room where Grandma sat knitting under the bedspread. Grandma looked down and did not seem surprised. She set her needles down. She lifted Luke into her warm hands. Her hands smelled of toast and soap. She smiled and said one soft word. Luke tried to tell her what had happened with quick mouse squeaks. Grandma read his movements like words. She opened a small locket and took out a paper scrap. She read a short rhyme about old kitchen cures. Her eyes grew bright with ideas. William and Mary peeked from her pocket. They twitched their whiskers and watched. Grandma's face was steady and kind. She started to plan. Luke felt safe in her hands. Night came, and they did not sleep. Grandma made chamomile tea. She folded a handkerchief like a tiny map. Luke climbed on her wrist and sniffed the dining room. They marked where the witches put their bottles. William and Mary ran small practice runs. Grandma showed Luke the timing and the place to act. They nodded and checked each small step. They were ready to try in the morning. Grandma squeezed his paw. They smiled. Morning light filled the dining room. Toast and porridge steamed in bowls. The witches sat at the long table. Mr. Pritchard fussed with linen and his bowler hat. Grandma moved through the room, calm and steady. She hid Luke and the mice in her skirt folds. The Grand High Witch set a napkin shaped like a star over her small bottle. No one watched Luke closely. Mr. Pritchard turned his back to fix the tea. Grandma spoke to the Grand High Witch. Her voice was calm and kind. Luke slipped from Grandma's pocket. He ran across the wide white tablecloth. William and Mary raced with him. He dashed past clinking spoons. He jumped over a tiny sugar bowl. He used crumbs and threads for steps. The napkin covered the little bottle like a tiny hat. Luke grabbed the napkin's edge with both paws. He pulled and pulled. The bottle started to wobble. It rolled slow at first. Luke kept pushing with all his small might. The room held its breath. Luke watched as the bottle teetered. It fell with a clear, bright clang. The sound moved slow, like a bell under water. The bottle hit a pastry dish and bounced. It rolled and rolled. Then it slipped off the plate and tumbled into a deep bowl of dark soup. The soup closed over it like a black pond. The Grand High Witch's mouth opened. Her face changed from proud to shocked. The other witches gasped. Their gloves slipped off and their hats tipped. Then, in a flash, they shrank. Their high heels became quick, tiny paws. Their voices turned into small, sharp squeaks. The big, quiet room filled with a busy, small sound. Mice scrambled over silver trays and teaspoons. They bumped sugar bowls and scurried under plates. Mr. Pritchard turned pale. He dropped his fork. Staff ran in with brooms. Napkins flew. Cups rattled. People cried out in quick words. The mice witches darted here and there. They were not fierce now. They looked frightened and confused. William and Mary squeaked and ran beside Luke. Grandma moved through the clatter with steady hands. She kept her voice soft. She found Luke and tucked him close. Her calm felt like a warm room in the middle of the noise. Workers shooed the tiny mice with gentle hands. They used brooms and soft cloths. The mice witches scattered out the door. They ran down the hotel steps and into the windy street. Grandma picked Luke up and held him to her chest. She smoothed his tiny head and whispered calm words. William and Mary curled in her palm. The dining room quieted. Mr. Pritchard straightened his coat and wiped his face. No one spoke of it at dinner. The hotel went back to being proper. They went home. The kitchen smelled of stewed apples. Grandma set a tiny matchbox bed. She tucked Luke in with cotton and a small blanket. William and Mary curled beside him. Grandma smoothed the blanket and braided a ribbon across it. She whispered, "No matter how small you are, I love you." Her voice was soft like the sea. Luke closed his eyes. He slept safe while the waves hummed outside.